How did you do this? Uh, I don't completely understand how this works, but how this image works, but I'm pretty sure it's illegal to have three of the exact same character, much less two. This is the meta. This is the top. This guy. This got 5-0. It's playing the fucking Melusine engine. It's playing the magic sword and everything. Strategize in 2025? I mean, its win con is literally just magic sword Noel. Cool. I'm always gonna be uh, interested whenever I see Noel in a genius invocation thingy. Anyway, we're not playing genius invocation. I might, but I'm primarily gonna be playing Path to Nowhere today. I want to finish the story. But before that, I want to go play some Wii Cross.
Special summons and tribute summons and having monsters with effects on them. They have to teach you about fusion monsters
Trying
that are present in
Mugen
your
out.
fusion deck, which is now called the X deck because of other X deck monsters that are present in it. They have to teach you about ritual monsters. They have to teach you about synchro monsters. They have to teach you about XYZ monsters. They have to teach you about pendulum monsters. And they also have to teach you about link monsters. Also, that way you can just get a very basic understanding of what you are looking at if your opponent plays down any monster of any of these types. Most of the videos also take this time to mention the spell and trap cards and also the different board positions where you can play down spell and trap cards such as Change of Heart here or Mirror Force, how the ways that different spell cards interact on your turn and on your opponent's turns, and how trap cards can only be used on your opponent's turn and cannot be flipped up right away on your turn. And here's where one of the main pitfalls that almost all of the Yu-Gi-Oh tutorials falls into comes up, which is the different levels of importance in terms of all of the different card types. Because all of these mechanics are communicated as equal as you want to get through as many of them as possible so that you can get down all of the information that is present in Yu-Gi-Oh as quickly as you can, it is really hard for you as a new player to intuit which of these mechanics are going to be present in every single one of your games and which of these mechanics are something you'll only see once in a blue moon. Just for example here, many of the videos that are tutorials for Yu-Gi will talk about flip
The
monsters
problem
and
with
effect monsters that
tutorials
have
for any
effects in
competitive
any given
game is
game.
just the
As
fact
a
that
new player, it is very
tutorials
hard for you to
can teach
differentiate
you how
without
to
any
play the
baseline of
game,
anything which one
but
of
it
these
won't
monsters you are going
teach
to
you
be
how
seeing
to
more
be
often.
competitive in a
Thanks to the
game.
fact that many of Yu-Gi-Oh's mechanics.
You know, oh nice, there's an update. Yuki didn't work. Damn. It reminds me I do want to make a deck with her, but like, I feel like it's better if I just wait until every card gets revealed and the new pack actually comes out. Because I feel like all the new decks so far are pretty mid until we get more revelations. Like, there's definitely gonna be new angels, new everything. Chiyomi Kotone from Persona 3 Portable. Like, here's a sport everyone knows, right? Basketball? Everyone knows basketball, right? You can teach people about uh, shooting the hoops, about 3 points and 2 points. Wait, we're going first. Fuck. With this hand. Oh, they are playing the new Yuki. Well, let's see what new Yuki can do. Who needs to actually make a new deck? I don't even think it's worth. Alright, you know what? Let's put this in grave. God, I still keep calling it grave. That's what playing Yu-Gi-Oh does to you, man. You play Yu-Gi-Oh, you're always gonna call the discard pile fucking graveyard. You play Magic the Gathering, you're gonna keep calling your deck your library. Anyway, yeah, you could teach people about the rules for dribbling and moving and passing and shooting and getting points and the shot timer and stuff. Like that won't tell you about the intricacies and importance of like teamwork, coordination, and the meta strategies people have developed and used. Oh, thank fucking God. We have an actual playable hand. Hopefully we can fill up the board. Alright, good. Not sure how valuable hand ripping would be. I didn't realize Driver's Ed was Labyrinth. Shadow level 1. Our Mugen is level 2, so checkmate. Yes, Long Spear is level 1, but their effect is to give your rig their effect. So yeah. Uh, that's the kind of bullshit card games are known for. Legal loopholes. Anyway, joke's on you. I'll never get my license. Ah! Well, that makes enough sense. Well, you can't guard this, that's for sure. You don't have any enter. Wow, that's a lot of driver's eds. We get it. You have a driver's license. You know how to drive. Good for you. Having your own card modern day isn't really all that important. It would be nice. I'd like to have my own car and be able to drive, but then again, I don't go out all that much and I'd like to have a remote workplace if possible. Work from home. I know making my bedroom my all room is not psychologically healthy, but who says it has to be unhealthy? Did I already played Ancient Slash. Uh, I'll take the damage. Doesn't feel valuable to play the blue right now. Uh, Ershkigal is genuinely a bad choice. Not only because we opened terribly, but because we're up against a fellow stun. It would be ill-advised, as I already mentioned in the previous vids. Caliburn. I was gonna add Caliburn next turn, but I mean, I guess we can add somebody else. Ushi Oni might be good. This is during the attack phase. Yeah, during their attack phase. Alright, our advantage engine will still work here. Trust. There's no way you play a defense here. Playing blues and blacks, and right now their NR is very pure, so I'd like to keep it that way. Prevent them from playing any non-blue things non-white things they might have. Like they could also be playing Frozen Gear. Not that it would be a good idea to activate right now for them. Oh, that's it. That's on the opponent's turn. Oh my god, I'm so dumb. I thought that was on their turn. I'm so good at reading. Whatever. If there's anything Mugen has plenty of anyways, it's time. That means plenty of mistakes can be made and we'd be perfectly fine. Ooh. Do they have recursion? They are playing black. Setting up a guard for next turn. I guess I didn't consider that as a potential play with one form divide. Off them. Yeah, let's call this off them. Like Tekbu, or there can be only one. Which a lot of people, myself included, seems to keep saying is there can only be one, but it's there can be only one. They're ahead in life, which is annoying, but in terms of card advantage, we are the one who's ahead. We use this now alongside the other defense because we won't have an opportunity otherwise afterwards.
Have massively different impacts on the game. For example, quick effect monsters in the hand are basically seen in almost every single match of modern Yu-Gi that is played, whereas flip monsters are extremely niche and will almost never be seen. It is really, really hard when you're a new player that is going in after just watching the tutorial to understand which of the parts of the tutorial are really important to keep in mind for when they're playing the game, and which of them can be almost completely discarded except for niche scenarios. Yu-Gi-Oh! Overall, as a game that has been around for so long, is absolutely full of fluff and has done almost nothing to chip away at the massive amount of knowledge that may be present in a single game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Not to say this is a bad thing, there are plenty of games that are full of a ton of complex mechanics that help add to the complexity of the game. However, most games like Magic the Gathering have done special things to set these things aside for new players when they are trying to understand the game on a fundamental level. Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic are both full of tons of mechanics that you may only see one match in 100 or even less than that, and you'll have to have an understanding of what the mechanic is when it comes up. However, Magic has done a lot of things like making these aspects less playable, adding in set rotation, and making it so that way many mechanics are packaged together, meaning they all rotate out at the same time, to make it a lot easier for a new player to only have to remember really crucial mechanics. If you look at Tevil here, this is a really, really good example of a card that shows what different aspects of Magic's cards need to be remembered and which ones don't. Things like flying and lifelink are something that almost all new players will almost immediately learn after playing through the tutorial, and therefore do not have to have reminder text placed on them so you can have an understanding. However, because of the mechanic Delve being very infrequently played and not seen except at the very, very high levels of powerful formats,
I didn't realize
reminder
there were
text is added
a lot
onto
of
it
the
so that way new players
cards
will
I've
not
been
have to guess as to what the mechanic
a
Delve
lot of
actually
these are
does.
already
This is made
labyrinths.
even worse in
And
Yu-Gi-Oh!
yet,
Because
the
there
good
is
thing
basically
about
no downtime
Yuki
in
is that
Yu-Gi-Oh!
you don't
Giving
need
you to
that
think
many
about what you want to
labyrinths.
do. Almost all the games end in a very small amount of turns, and almost all of the time you are performing actions during those turns, which is a lot of fun for players
Since
who
you only need
understand
at
the game,
least
but is
one, and your
extremely
boss
difficult for players who
monster
do
is a
not understand
labyrinth,
it.
so you
Thanks
can
to
get
the
away
fact
with
that
just
even the
that.
most basic of Yu-Gi-Oh cards used to start off combos in Yu-Gi-Oh have massive walls of text on them that may require multiple readings, it is very, very difficult for a new player to get a grasp on what basically any card does in the very early games of Yu-Gi-Oh! This means that it is really, really hard for you to learn anything during a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Meaning that you have to basically learn all of the mechanics up front before you actually go in to play an actual game of Yu-Gi-Oh! This is further compounded by the fact that there were many archetypes that you may not have encountered or played against that your opponent could be playing, that therefore ask you the question, hey, do you understand how flip monsters work, even though they haven't really been relevant for a long time? I'm playing a gimmicky Mimikul deck that you may not understand, and has to react with flip cards that go to your side of the field, and you have to understand the way that those kind of cards work in this deck. Ritual monsters are a great example of this. They have been relatively weak throughout almost all of Yu-Gi-Oh's lifetime, meaning that if you were a new player, you wouldn't have to add this one thing to your mental stack. Understanding a ritual monster wasn't that important, because you were very unlikely to run into it. But because of the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh keeps growing and growing, gaining new mechanics and reintroducing old ones, ritual monsters are now something that every single player will be forced to have an understanding of and how to play against. Many people who play Yu-Gi-Oh have just told me this. It'll become a lot simpler if you just play a few games to try to get an understanding for it. Maybe we can't really explain everything to you up front because there's simply too much information to be front-loaded in a game of Yu-Gi-Oh. Well, if you just play a few games, get a basic understanding of how your decks work, slowly you will gain an understanding of how everything works. First off, this is just not functional as a tutorial. Almost every single game in the world, if you just play it enough, you'll eventually gain an understanding of how it works just by reading the cards over and over again, like if you were doing a test. But that is really not what you want to do if you are making a tutorial for how to get people into your game. This also works a lot better for games that are really easy to understand. In a game like Magic, most of the powerful cards have 1 to 2 abilities and a basic amount of stats and a cost. There's really not that much on the card for you to read to understand, even at the highest levels of play. This can also be solved by making the game really casual. If you're playing a game where you're not trying to win or actively working against a clock or an opponent, it'll be a lot easier if your opponent plays down a card with a ton of text on it
What do you
for
mean
you
no
to just
valid
ask them,
targets? They could have
hey,
just
what does that
added
do?
another
But
Yuki,
because we're
honestly.
playing in a cooperative
But
environment,
yeah,
there is no
probably
reason for your
better for
opponent
them
to
to save
lie
their
or take
editor.
advantage of you or kind of trick you
That's
to
why
know
I
what their card
figured it was a
actually
good
does.
time.
Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't have either of these. Almost all of the Yu-Gi-Oh formats are 1v1, meaning it is actively in your opponent's advantage if you don't understand the cards that they use, because then they can use them in ways that you don't understand or can take advantage of your lack of knowledge. That's a lot of where the skill of Yu-Gi-Oh comes from, taking advantage of knowledge that you have that your opponent lacks. Not to mention that you're going to read absolutely an astounding number of words more if you are new to Yu-Gi-Oh than if you are new to almost any other card game on the market. Even the basic cards that are present in Yu-Gi-Oh's combos have a large wall of text that you may have to read multiple times to get an understanding of what the card does, not only while it's in play, but when it's in your opponent's hand, or in the graveyard, or being used for something like a synchro summon. As a new player, if you're going
If
in
we can
for the tournament
survive
for
and
the
they
first time,
commit
there are
to
almost
trying
no
to
safety nets there
attack,
for you to be able to
we could
understand
win with
how to play the
Erstigal.
game on a fundamental level, other than just simply asking your opponent to explain every card they play, and then you having an understanding of what that actually means in the game from what you've seen from the very, very limited experience you have playing the game. A lot of these problems can be traced back to the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh only has one main way to play, which is just 1v1 against your opponent in the most common standard format. There are technically other versions of this format that are present in Yu-Gi-Oh, but these are more as a fact of the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh has to have these formats rather than they want to. The 3 different formats are the TCG, the OCG, and Master Duel, which all have different ban lists and different versions of cards which are legal in the game. This is more because of the fact that cards are released at a different time in Japan than they do in America. It takes an amount of time for Yu-Gi-Oh developers to add the cards into Master Duel, meaning that it's more of a forced version of Konami rather than a choice by them specifically. And MBT's video actually illustrates a really important point about the history of Yu-Gi-Oh!, talking about both Master Duel and Duel Links, two different versions of Yu-Gi-Oh! Which can be played on your phone or online, a different version of Yu-Gi-Oh! That is completely separate from the regular game that lots of people got into because of the fact that it is associated with Yu-Gi-Oh! Both of these games provide something that is really, really important when you're introducing a new player into your game, and that's by providing a
It's
very
hard to
much less
tell when would be
hostile
a good
environment for
time,
someone
but
to get into your game. It can
looking
be
at
extremely
what I have,
intimidating to go down to a local game
it's
store, sit amongst a bunch of people you've
they
literally never talked to before, and
they'd have a
patiently
huge
hope that you
advantage
can ask any of
activating
them,
it this
hey,
turn.
how does this work? How do you play this card? How does this mechanic work? A lot of them may not be willing to
Or
help you,
they
or
don't
may just be
actually
scary
need
for
to.
you as a stranger to walk up to random other strangers and hope for them to help you. This is why it is so important to have single-player ways to play the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like Duel Links or Master Duel. It makes it way, way less intimidating for a new player to get into your game if they can play it for themselves for a bit to understand not only if it is for them, but if they want to join the community. Making the game more accessible for players not only makes it easier for new players to start playing the game and get an understanding of how the game is played, but also makes it way, way less intimidating for you to go out completely on your own and try to find a way to play this game by yourself. Hell, Magic in 2019 released Duels of the Planeswalkers for consoles and for PC, giving you an easy way for you to learn how to play Magic the Gathering all the way back in 2009 on the easiest way you could if you had an Xbox or a PlayStation. This is why having these cheap or free versions of the game is so important. It's really hard to recommend a game to someone if you not only need an entire teacher there to basically instruct you on how to play the game on a fundamental level, but you also need to shell out a significant amount of money before you even understand how to play the game. It's a really, really high barrier of entry for almost every single player trying to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! For the first time. A lot of these issues do arise from the fact that it is only one main playable format that is present in Yu-Gi-Oh! Meaning that everyone has to learn the same way for the first time if you want to play in any Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament, and you can see a lot of this reflected in the way that the community treats the standard format. Thanks to the fact that there is very little diversity in terms of what is actually playable in the modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Format, having to play against multiple of the same decks over and over again, very powerful decks from the new archetypes that are released until new archetypes come out to replace those old ones from the previous packs, it is very, very common for Yu-Gi-Oh! Content creators and players to build community versions of different formats so that way they can play something separate from the main game. BT, for example, as we saw before, has this time machine format he's been playing with his friends, where they go back in time and play older versions of different decks, which were only present in certain years, 2008, for example, giving you a much different experience from the modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Of today. Simo takes the modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Of today and gives it a different spin, having a Masochist series where he's only allowed to play with a very limited amount of cards and only gives himself new cards after he wins, making it a very, very different feeling experience where you are more often expected to lose a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Than you are to win when climbing on the ladder. Farva, another popular creator, has a draft tournament here where you do a different version of
Unfortunately,
drafting,
we
which is something
lose.
that is very present in Magic as a common way to play the game, however, is completely foreign to a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player, meaning that if you want to do some sort of draft, you have to implement it yourself amongst friends without any outside assistance from Konami. Now, I will mention, while all of these do seem like much more fun ways to play the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Than actually playing the modern
Yeah,
format in
not
my opinion,
bad.
it is not completely impossible for you to come up with a way to play the modern game on YouTube and have success or a
Then
good time.
again, we
Many
fucking
popular YouTube
bricked
channels like
that
Team
entire
Samurai
game. That
X,
seems to be
TBBS, or Joshua Schmidt
the
all make
biggest
content
problem with
that is not
Mugen.
only talking about the way the modern card game is played, but actually uploading
Of
versions of
course,
themselves
it's
playing
only
the
a
modern card game
problem
with
with
different decks
me.
and different ways of playing the game. But even all of these channels feel a chafing underneath restrictions, a need for more. They all post different videos talking about things like ban lists or different versions of the game, such as the Genesis format. They all feel a need to have other versions of the content just because the basic
I'll
card
try
game of Yu-Gi-Oh!
exchanging
Is too
hands.
small for a single content creator to focus on. Now, a lot of you may look at this and say, hey, you're just putting your faith as a player in the community to make different formats for you to play and different things that are fun. Is that such a bad thing? And I would say no. It's definitely not a bad thing. In fact, it's an incredible thing to have in your community, putting themselves together to make new formats and new ways to play the game. If there's anything that I want you to take away from MBT's How to Play video, it's not actually how to play Yu-Gi-Oh, but how incredible of a Yu-Gi-Oh community has been formed over all of these years of playing the card game. My favorite example of this is definitely Jeff Leonard, a person who started playing Yu-Gi-Oh with his kid and wanted to have an understanding of how to play Yu-Gi-Oh together
Oh,
with his
thanks.
son, who plays in many tournaments and is always a player to see doing well. Most surprising thing is that Jeff Leonard plays Mystic Mine and Exodia the Forbidden One, extremely toxic, focused on stopping your opponent from being able to play at all by either winning the game as immediately early as possible with the effect of Exodia, or locking them out completely with Mystic Mine. The fact that this guy is still loving the community is a really, really good sign for Yu-Gi-Oh! As they show that the person playing the game is much more important than the deck they are playing. All of this stuff is great and a good reason to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! But it shouldn't be mandatory. mandatory.
They're playing the new
Even
Sanga.
if I do think that you can put faith into the Yu-Gi-Oh community, it shouldn't be absolutely mandatory if you want to learn how to play the game that you trust the community to show you a good time. Obviously, it's a good sign, but the problem is that depending on where you are playing Yu-Gi-Oh can make it have a vastly different experience for you. If your local Yu-Gi-Oh community is really hostile towards you or hostile towards new players, there's almost nothing you can do in terms of playing the game other than literally move your location to a different store or a different country or a different city. This is part of the reason I think Duel Links and Master Duels were such big steps in the right direction for Yu-Gi-Oh! They give you a single-player way to play the game and gain an understanding of Yu-Gi-Oh! Meaning that even if your local community is hostile towards Yu-Gi-Oh! As a game or towards you as a player, you can still find a way to play the game on your own terms and have a good time. Hell, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community itself has for years been making their own versions of these, such as Edo Pro and Dueling Book, which allow you to play Yu-Gi-Oh! As the modern game is played by yourself, just online against random opponents. All these ways, Master Duel, Duel Links, Edo Pro, Dueling Book, I think they're all great ways to start playing Yu-Gi-Oh! But the problem is they all don't feature a tutorial, a basic way to get you into the game, meaning that if you get into one of these, it is more than likely that somebody else introduced you to the game, rather than the game bringing you in on its own terms. At this point, it's pretty obvious that Konami is much less than helpful in terms of bringing new players into the game. The only tutorial that you can currently find from Konami to actually teach you how to play the game is the one that is present in Master Duel, which is woefully inaccurate in terms of not only how the game is played, but what you're going to need to know to be able to play the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! This combined with the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh! Consistently changes the rules, meaning that if you even learned the game as little as 5 years ago, the rules are completely different from the way you used to
They
play the
haven't
game,
changed
makes it
Master
very,
Rule
very
5 in
hard for
like a
players to get into
decade.
the game,
What
even
are
if
you
you already
going
knew
on
how to play
about?
the game maybe 5 or 10 years ago. This stacks on top of the fact that they never let anything go from those 5, 10, 20 years ago of Yu-Gi-Oh's gameplay. Thanks to the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has no form of set rotation or any way to remove previous mechanics from Yu-Gi-Oh! Things like counter traps still remain present in the game even to this day, even though they were only really relevant very, very long ago and see much, much less play than they would back in the day when Solemn Judgment was one of the best cards in the game. Things like tuners, for example, need to be explained to literally every single player, just because even if you don't have any synchrons in your deck and don't have any intention of using any synchro monsters at all, if your opponent plays a tuner monster, they will need to explain to you how tuners work if they plan on making any synchro summoning in their deck. Thanks to the fact that there's already so many mechanics, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Is very obviously not intent on cutting almost anything from the previous 20 years, Yu-Gi-Oh! Will never ever get simpler and will only ever get more difficult for new players to get into. This is a lot of the reason why Yu-Gi-Oh! Tutorials are getting more and more bloated over time. While it would be pretty easy to make a relatively simple tutorial for Yu-Gi-Oh! With very, very few mechanics in it, because of the fact that every single mechanic has to stack on top of every other mechanic, almost everything needs to be explained. As much as Yu-Gi-Oh! Wants to remove Pendulum from the game, they simply can't because they have made it a pact with themselves to never ever remove any element from the modern game. And that sucks, because I really do want to recommend Yu-Gi-Oh! My opinion, out of all the major card games, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has probably the coolest anime and coolest card aesthetic out of any of the games on the market. There's a reason things like Exodia, things like Dark Magician, and things like Blue Eyes White Dragon still resonate even today, and people still know about them, even as Yu-Gi-Oh! Has continued on and transformed vastly from the very early years of the game. If you're a fan of other card games, I find it really difficult to recommend Yu-Gi-Oh! To you if you're a fan of almost any other card game on the market.
At the end of
There
the
is
day,
simply no other
Ershigasa
game
win
that
more
has at
card.
all similar mechanics to the way Yu-Gi-Oh! Is played in this modern format, and explaining it to a person was something that would take so much time that is often not worth their time for me to do it, meaning that they would have to find somebody else who's willing to sit down for multiple hours to teach someone how to play the game. This gets even worse if you're an old fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Having players that used to play in the games where Gemini Elf was the best card in the game and having to bring them all the way up to understanding the way that Lake monsters work is a massive multi-year walking process where you have to go through every single mechanic that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has had implemented in over 20 odd years. Not to mention the fact that even if you started on later in this process, maybe you're familiar with Synchros, XYZs, maybe you're familiar with Pendulum monsters, you still need to not only re-explain what all the newer monsters were and how the old monsters have changed over time, such as rituals or fusion monsters not needing polymerization, but then you also need to explain all of the different rule changes that have happened to the board and the game as a whole. I think it's pretty needless to say, but if you need a multi-day tutorial to teach a person how to even begin playing your game, even if they have already played that exact same game many years ago, there is definitely something that has gone wrong with all of the tutorials present in the game. And this is why I think this MBT video disappointed me so much. We really need a real tutorial. A true how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! That doesn't just explain how the game got to where it is and what the different basic mechanics of the game are, but one that generally
That's
understands and explains to you
impossible.
as a player what you are going to need to do if you want to go play Yu-Gi-Oh! Tomorrow at your LGS. I'm sick and tired of looking at different tutorial videos where they just show you how to normal summon Celtic Guardian as the introduction to how normal summoning works, as that is something that you will simply never be doing in a modern game of Yu-Gi-Oh! A way to explain the modern game to new players so that way they can walk into Yu-Gi-Oh! And have a good expectation of what their first game is actually
Are
going to
you
look like.
joking me?
Start off by talking about hand traps and giving a player an introduction to how hand traps work and how important it is if you are going first versus going second in a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! This will help them have a more prepared experience for when they go into that first game
How
and
about
they have a
you
game
do
where
it
they play
yourself?
literally no cards. Have a guide starting off with modern combo starter card that you will be seeing from game after game. Almost every archetype has a card that is played as a 3 of that you will commonly play down to start by searching your deck, getting your combo
These
starters,
videos
and your
didn't
main
exist
deck
when I
expansion.
started.
This
They
is something
still
that is
don't
really important
exist.
to understand if you
I
are starting
I
out in
turned
Yu-Gi-Oh!
out
So you
just
can
fine
understand even what you
enjoying
are looking at when you
Yu-Gi-Oh!
are starting the game.
Wow, Sphere is
Explaining
really
not
hot.
only
She's
the
got
massive
some
wall attacks
really
that is
nice
present on
spheres
almost
on
every
her
single card,
chest.
but also dumbing it down in a way where even if you don't understand what all of the card means, you can get a general gist of what the card
Are we
does by just
seriously?
skimming it over the first time and
We
reading,
are.
when this card is normal summon, search deck for a blah.
Never
And
mind.
also explain the most core element that is present in Yu-Gi-Oh! That I see talked about way too infrequently, which is archetypes. A way to explain what different archetypes do and focus on, so that way you can differently segment different ways of summoning cards, such as fusion summoning, ritual summoning, synchro summoning. If you know what different decks are capable or intend to do different versions of different summoning elements, it can be a lot easier for you as a player to segment which different parts of the game you need to be paying attention to in any game. If you're playing against Dragotail, you're going to need to worry a bit about fusion summoning. If you're playing against Miss Rugi, you'll have to worry about rituals, etc. By actually explaining what may happen when you go into a modern game of Yu-Gi-Oh! With a modernly prepared deck, you can get a pretty basic understanding of cards and play patterns that you will be seeing
Oh,
over and
fuck
over
you
again,
too, game.
making it much, much easier for a new player to gain a basic understanding of what is going on in a game just at a glance. Of course, that's just hopes from me, as most of the tutorials nowadays don't really have anything of that ilk. If you would like to see me make one, let me know down in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe while you're down there, and also let me know if I missed out on any tutorials that do a better job explaining than the ones that I have seen on my homepage for Yu-Gi-Oh! I spent a lot of time in this video looking around, seeing if I could find any tutorial that I deemed adequate in terms of teaching players how to start playing the game, and simply none of them stood up to snuff. If you want me to try to make that video, let me know down in the comments below. I've also started a Patreon and
The
have
thing he's describing isn't a tutorial. It's a guide to getting into competition. Think of like Art of Smash, the Art of Smash series by what's his name, where he talks about individual characters in depth. I got into Wii Cross just fine. Obviously, my deck building and concept of the game started off trash because uh, learning the rules doesn't necessarily immediately equate to learning about gameplay. Or I meant to reverse that. It's practically all of my blues already out of the deck. Card games just don't want me to succeed. You make a tutorial where you explain things like hand traps and how to get into the modern competition. It's not something that's gonna appeal to a lot of people. Tutorials in general don't appeal. In the end, I liked MBT's video because it teaches you the most important thing, which is that it is enjoyable and you should be able to enjoy it as long as you enter with the correct mindset. A tutorial that's strictly about competition isn't gonna get someone into Yu-Gi-Oh or WeCross or anything. Like someone says, "I want to play Smash or Blaze Blue," and then your immediate response is to tell them, "All right, let's get you a proper deck, and or let's give you this character who's the top tier right now." And like that's not gonna be fun. Ideally, we want to start off by just sucking ass. Sucking ass is a lot of fun. That's an important truth. I started off playing with my shitty ass pet decks that I made myself, slightly editing the starter decks. That was a lot of fun. When I started off with Nurse Burn, Reficule, Bad Reaction to Shimochi, that was fun. I started off playing fucking uh, what's his name? In Smash Ultimate. I don't remember who my initial main and Ultimate was, but I remember they were very bad, and that was fun. It's only after you've discovered that the game that you like is fun, even after the constant losing streak, that's when, that's when someone should realize and decide that maybe competition is where they'll get further kicks. Because losing over and over again with the things that you considered fun will only remain fun for so long. If you decide that that's not fun anymore, but you still want to keep playing, that's a sign that you enjoy the game. Otherwise, if you end up like those stupid ass fucking complainers who fucking complain every time there's a new meta deck and that it isn't their beloved fucking Morphthronics or Shaddolls or Burning Abyss or whatever other thing, then that's a sign that you just don't like the game and you should probably just move on. I enjoy Sash midrange, but I know it's not a good deck. But I'm gonna keep playing it occasionally, and I'm still going to try playing competitively with decks that I know are gonna be powerful, even if I might not necessarily like them, because the We Cross as a whole is fun. What are they doing? Let's refresh. It would be really funny in the tutorial that so the TCG here is mentioning what it will look like when we get to the deck building section. Is it basically boils down to here are staple cards. You're gonna have to remember these. Every deck is gonna have this. And then from there, it's just whatever the latest cards are out. And then from there, you probably should also look up any legacy cards that might be relevant for them, like Yummy with fucking uh the stupid spell that's banned now. You're trying to go for the kill. They just need one more piece of removal. And never mind, they have assassin. Right, we died to a single piece of removal. So in all likelihood, we're still very dead here. Manomin is like the biggest problem we have. Even if we get the level 2 guy, not gonna contribute much. 8,000 still very easy to get over.
Reptiles are one of the largest, most successful factions in the entire game. The massive variety of reptilian builds encompasses every strategy from defensive tank builds to rushdown combo builds, to tether grappler builds to status effect control builds, and many more. Reptiles may not be the dominant faction anymore, but they still have tons of powerful high-tier builds that can hold their ground against the best of the best. But which of these strategies are the most viable in the current meta, and which are struggling to keep up? Find out in the ultimate reptile tier list. But before we get into this massive tier list, what exactly is a reptile? There are many notable perks, but the three most important ones for a reptile main to learn and master are scale
The
armor,
fuck?
cold-bloodedness, and eggshells. Scale armor
Okay, that
provides
was
excellent
weird. Why?
defense
How did?
without significantly restricting user mobility.
Was it
Scales
a
are
desync?
best
I
at
guess.
deflecting slashing type damage, perfect for allowing the reptile player to handle scrappy duels with other reptiles or mammals, where claws are their primary weapon to worry about. However, scales often struggle against piercing damage, so builds with sharp beaks, fangs, or stingers can be tough matchups for reptiles. The cold-blooded perk is a core part of the reptile build, and has a wide variety of implications. It's a trade-off.
A good enough
Cold-blooded builds
hand,
have
I
slower
suppose.
stamina regeneration and
For
lower maximum
once.
stamina than warm-blooded builds, but also require less food to survive and age more slowly.
Oh, we're playing
This
her.
means reptile players can be a bit more selective in picking their battles, and don't need to take every fight they encounter head-on, and also means they can survive temporary famines and droughts better than warm-blooded builds. Reptiles also get bonus energy in sunlight, which can be super helpful in a pinch. Eggshells might seem like a minor ability, but it was a massive upgrade over the amphibian's unshelled jelly eggs, as it means reptile players can move their respawn points essentially anywhere, as opposed to being hard locked to aquatic biomes. This is huge for avoiding spawn campers and setting future playthroughs up for success. During the Mesozoic expansion, reptiles were far and away the most dominant faction in the game, top tier on land, in the sea, and in the sky. But even after the devs dropped the banhammer on the most overpowered reptilian builds, reptiles still maintain a thriving player base and remain a competitive threat. So, of all the turtles, lizards, snakes, and crocs, which reptiles rank highest? Let's jump into the tier list.
All of our
Starting at
purple
the very
form.
bottom of this group,
Cringe.
we have the garter snake, one of the weakest snake builds in the game. Data miners are actually unsure whether or not this build is venomous, but if it is, it's some of the weakest venom in the game. And with no other offensive abilities, the garter snake essentially only has favorable matchups against things far smaller than it, like frogs and mice. Because they're so vulnerable, garter snake players love to attack aquatic targets like tadpoles and small fish, but they have no actual abilities that synergize with this playstyle, nor is it a particularly good swimmer, and therefore takes on considerable risk when they venture into the water. Garter snakes are also caught in an endless loop of wasting a ton of evolution points, evolving extreme toxin resistance to the poison of a specific nude build. This isn't very efficient, but I guess the garter snake needs to preserve its few favorable matchups. Next in F tier, we have the snake-necked turtles. Snake-necked turtles have significantly longer necks than the rest of the turtle faction, and although this does grant them a reach advantage in a few scenarios, allowing it to attack prey behind cover and whatnot, this comes at a huge cost. This build's weak point is effectively triple in size. Not only does this make it an easier attack target, but it's also too large for the turtle to fully withdraw its neck back into its shell. Without the ability to properly guard its weak point, snake-necked turtles have lost the best perk of playing the turtle class. Yes, being able to reach further with your bite attack is nice, but skilled players will punish this hard. Next in F tier, we have the Racer Snake. This is a snake build that put an above average number of evolution points into mobility, making it one of the fastest snake builds in the game. That's not really saying a lot given that snakes tend to have pretty poor movement speed, but credit where credit is due, this does give them a much better chance of dashing into cover when under attack. Unfortunately, as with a lot of mobility-centric builds, this alone isn't enough to make them competitively viable. In fact, even with their above-average slithering speed, they're usually still too slow to chase down many of their preferred attack targets. They're also worse climbers than most snakes, making them one of the few snakes that can be countered by simply climbing out of reach. In almost all cases, a snake's worst matchup is against birds, and unfortunately for the racer snake, speed usually isn't much use against a surprise aerial attack. Their lack of practical applications for their signature abilities plants them firmly in F tier for me. Some Maggie magic set up. Obviously, today's stream we've talked about for quite a while. It is the day we've been saving up quite a lot of gems and ultra rares CP4. It is the day that Dracotel is in Master Duel. So we will be opening a lot of packs and getting some royal rares today. Hope I have better luck than Farfetch. I hope I have great luck. I have no idea how Farfetch it, but based on your comments, I'm going to assume not well. I have 100,000 gems ready, guys, for today. You guys can see that I have just under 13,000 ultra rares saved. So today we're going to burn through it all. We're going to get royal rares today. I like Dracotel. We're going to try max it out as much as we can. And I believe there's also a bundle. I'm not a big fan of the bundle, but I guess we'll open it for the, I don't know, just to have it. I don't know if I love this. The coin is whatever. I don't really care about this. I don't care about this. It's probably the coolest thing, but that's fine. 13,000 UR dust is more unbelievable than 100,000 gems. I agree. But yeah. All right. Let's get started. A lot of packs to open, so when it doesn't show that many foils, we'll just skip through and make fast. Oh, this was a lot of foils. This was very good. Cool. We got a Lion, Secretarian. We're on our way. No Royals yet, though. Because though we'll obviously get very bored of this set very quick because we do have a lot of packs to open. Dude, what are the rarities of the cards? I haven't looked at that yet. How many Ultras do I have to craft? 1, 2, 3, 4. This doesn't count. 4 Ultra Rares? I mean, not crazy, but it's a lot still. Super Rares for Royals. Gulamel, Lucius, Frixel, Rahu. None of the traps? Okay. The traps roll down here. 1, 2, 3. And then Urgla, Pantier, Urgla's went down here. Cool. Alright, I guess. I wish I could royal those out, but Odeon is very cheap. Ultra. Oh. This Ultra? There's not even a 3 of. This is very good, actually, for the Odeon. Yeah, Odeon seems like a good option right now. Press forward. It's our first Fine Mina. Medius the Poor. Alright, two purple cards. Oh, that's one by one. But Odeon before Merrick? What do you mean? What Merrick card are you expecting? Merrick has really great keeper stuff. Merrick has a lot of like cards, right? The raw stuff, whatever. Medius the Pure? No, it's the Poor because it's so poor that it gets bad support. Oh, here we go. Start us off strong. No, never mind. Not these. I'm not an RBH hater per se, but like, given the alternatives are either Odeon cards or Dragon cards, I'd rather get the others. Kinda. Eh. Okay, not a royal. Are we having a royal off? Rhyme style. You can't match my royals. Yes, we are having a royal hunt. But we're looking for Draco Tails. You're probably looking for fucking Odeon or some shit. I like my fusion decks. Tears and Draco Tails. I know you have a discrimination against this. Dude, getting alt Diabell Royal is diabolical. You have to get so lucky to get a Royal alt art. Fucking, or you spent literally $100,000. It is so hard to pull alt art Royals. You got it in your bundle? Sad. Alright, skip. I'm still nothing. It was threw up on the plane? I don't blame you, that is crazy. I have one Royal alt art, it's Ghost Bell. You got Aluber and alt art Apo. That's fucking crazy, man. Imagine how much this account costs if he sells it. Ooh, me or Ryan, both of us are crazy expensive. I have a lot of Royals too. I just don't have as many staples. Gulamel, 2 Gulamels. Royal? No. How many extra Royals do you have? Like, I have multiple royal cards I just can't use, like from tier. Like I have 4 royal screams. I just pulled 4 of them while trying to get the rest of the cards. Mine's more valuable because the world stuff. Oh, I mean, sure. If you want to count that, then mine is one of 3 accounts that says 2024 World Champion. Yeah, I have 3 Royal Sharons, and it's at 2. I have 3 Royal Rule Closes, never play more than 1. I have 2 Royal Pearl Rhinos, and it's bans now. Like 8 Royal Tier Cash, right? Like 5 or something. The 2 Royal Card Ds? Damn, I'm jealous. Oh, I pulled a Royal Penguin Brave last night. You pulled the one right after. Oh, I pulled that today. Oh yeah, 2 days ago. A Royal Demonster Vengeance because it's for my tier deck. That card is sick. I'm gonna use it for other things. Royal. Not that. It's a White Forest tier deck. Bridging it all together. I mean, actually, I played against you with it. You were not happy. Never mind. You won't like it. Royal Mululu. Royal the Mululu. Yeah. Okay, man. That's diabolical. It's broken. Fun. One thing about Diabolical Vengeance is a good graveyard effect. So does, like, the Philia Diabell or whatever. The play like Diabell. Diabolical? Yes, diabolical. There's 10 more packs, then we are done with the Gamba, the first set. The pulls are very good. Yeah, but we're looking for Royals here, man. We'll pull everything. An Owl Royal would be good. No, man, I don't want Archmage cards. I want Draco Tails. 2 10K gems. You have to get a Royal Odeon card before CX. How much money have you spent for today? 1,600 Canadian, I think it was. No more. Quite a bit. Damn, respectfully. A Royal Nerva. I mean, the card's not, like, bad. It's not good. Yeah, it's rough. I don't know. Why is this in this set? I had 2 Fusion Gates here. Do you buy all these gems with your own money? What's the alternative? I don't understand. Isn't Fairy Tale the best variant international? I mean, we will try it today. Like, it came out just now.
Feels really bad to only be able to benefit
Can I
from
rob
that
a bank like a
once.
normal person? What is that supposed to mean? Rob a bank. So I look at the guy that robbed a bank. Dude, it was my birthday this week. Give me some good royals, please. I need this. Birthday gift to me,
It's
Konami.
also really
Damn.
sacky. Anything
Skip
life
luck? What do you guys
burst
think? A lot of
reliant
foils here, but
feels
I
sacky.
think skip luck. Is JGL the best deck for the ETF? Guys, it's looking like a good position, but you can't
You
expect
would have
me
preferred if your activation of
to
despair
have
never
the
actually ever gets to matter,
knowledge on the format
which
before I even
feels
play the
really
game.
bad.
Not a fucking
You
oracle.
want your once per game ability to actually do
Skip's not working,
something,
guys. That's just bad.
rather than activate it and
YouTube.
hope you can be happy it never gets to matter. That's not very fun. Urshigal would be really funny to get at this very moment. I'm gonna hold out for it. Let's fucking go. We got 2 of them. Because they don't have any defenses and they're living off of their life burst. I think it's worth the gamble. Now we potentially just win this turn. Let's go. Our early game needs to stop sucking so much ass. I think the only realistic way to do that is to have more Falulush. Not as useful as I think you are. Genuinely, I think it's better to just go for 4 Arc-Gwynns. Or try Exia again. Want to do one more game.
My beauty hack from. Okay, so I got the dual level max in the Duelist Cup, and I got some bad news for y'all. So obviously the deck I played was Malice, more so than anything to test Malice post ban list without Red Ransom to see if it's for real. And uh, unfortunately, it it is not only is it real, it is so real that I don't think a lot of people realize just how real Malice is. Okay, then back in my tier list, right, I put Malice at the top of tier 2, and frankly, I want to say that that was wrong. That was completely wrong. I would redo the placement of Malice completely. It is not a tier 2 deck. It is firmly a tier 1 deck still. Not only is it tier 1, it's arguable that Malice is. I can't believe I'm fucking saying this. There's an argument for Malice to be the best deck in Master Duel right now without Red Ransom. Like what in the you see the extra deck, right? Red Ransom's nowhere to be seen. Not nowhere in sight, and it's still so yeah. To the first I'll start with, the deck list is actually doesn't change. It almost doesn't change at all, pretty much. Like the only things are like in the extra deck. Obviously, you have to replace Red Ransom with something, right? So that means if you weren't playing Eco Target Hitsu before, you would play Hitsu in place of Red Ransom. If you weren't playing Transport before, you would play Transport in place of Red Ransom. And I was playing both already, so I put in IP Masquerade as the 15th card as a replacement for Red Ransom, which honestly it doesn't even really matter because I never even made my 15th extra deck card really much at all. Like I think I made it. a couple of times at all through the duelist climb. So yeah, and the main deck
Let's
changes
see the
even less.
matchup
Okay,
against
so
who I consider to be the worst. Anyone playing
before we
Alpha
played Mouse
Jealousy.
Mirror and we would not play MT. We would not play TB11. Now, well, we have to play TB11 now because
Because
Red
when we have
Ransom
the option
got you.
to push
Well, let me
for a
see how
lot
it
of
shows.
damage
So
really quickly,
yeah, Red Ransom
it might
before
not
Red
matter
Ransom
all that
got you to
much.
Underground, and Red
Holy
Ransom would also
fuck.
banish someone come would also some banish another name when it comes back. So Red Ransom basically got you two names.
I don't
So in
think
order to make up for the
Get
two
Bible's
names,
a good
you have
card
to
to
play
open with
TB11
to
because
start with,
TB11 gets you
so
access to your second name. Unfortunately, we have to play this card now, but that also means that we don't play Mirror anymore because the
it's a
only
good
way to
thing
search
our
Mirror
opponent
was
bricked
through
harder.
Malice in the Underground, which the only way to get to Malice in the Underground was through Red Ransom. So essentially, Mirror is not really searchable at all or accessible at any point. Therefore, this is useless now. It's not part of any combos anymore. You can't even really search this. So we just cut Mirror completely and just replaced it with TB11, and that's literally all you need to change in the main deck. Like literally, you could use a Malice deck list from last season and change like two cards, and then it would be completely and then that would be it. That's all you need to do. So, yeah. So, anyways, why is Malice still good? Well, end board wise, and end board's completely unchanged. It's like literally, it's the exact same end board. If you took a screenshot of Malice's end board last pre banless and Malice's end board post banless, you would not be able to tell the difference whatsoever. That's yeah. You have ways to access all your novel pieces. Basically, in order to make up for the two names that Red Ransom got you, you would instead of going through Red Ransom, you would TP11 get out one name, and then you would with backup administer, you would just search the second name, which would either be Rabbit or Marshare or whatever like you're missing, as opposed to searching Wizard Ad Administer. You actually don't search Wizard Ad Administer anymore. If you unless you already have access to all your Malice names, then you would search Wizard. But backup is usually what you use to get your second name that you were missing from Red Ransom. But because you're allowed to search any Dark Cypress monster and not just Wizard Ad Administer, you can just literally search whatever Malice name you're missing, and then still get access to all your names and do your full combo without for playing through hand traps, right? Uh, Hand traps do stop your one card combos more often, right? Before, like Nibiru, Ash, Imperm, like most of those cards didn't do jack shit to your one card combo. Now they actually do something. They do more than jack shit. So that's saying something, right? Like you will not be able to get to the end board through an Ash Blossom, your full end board through an Ash Blossom anymore. It will stop you a little bit. Nibiru is probably the main thing. Nibiru is the one that probably hurts the most because you don't have a lot of way to play through Nibiru with just a one card combo. Imperm, I still kind of iffy on Imperm. I'm not gonna lie because Imperm really only stops you if you normal summon a monster. But if you start a lure or you start Gold Star or you start Mouse Underground or anything, or you just hard draw March Share, then like the Imperm also still does about the exact same as it did before, which is nothing. But yeah. That being said, like if you draw extenders, the Ash is still not stopping you. Like if you draw an extender, you will often be able to play through hand traps still because the extenders beat two hand traps when you pair them with a starter. Like you will see through the replays that I beat Infirm Impulse multiple times, which is post banless, no red ransom. Yes, that you can still do that because the extenders in Alice are crap. Back to back Mister and Marshall, they basically get you two bodies minimum. Uh, yeah, and also for the Dragon Tail matchup or Dragon Tail, another reason why I think Malice is probably one of the best decks because Malice has like probably the best Dragon Tail matchup in the entire game. Like just engine for engine wise, I have a higher win rate going second versus Dragon Tail than I have versus going first versus Dragon Tail, simply because I can't get fluid and max E when I go second. Because the Dragon Tail end board, if they're not playing Magician's Dragon Tail, their end board is nowhere near good enough to beat like a full engine Malice hand. It's like not even close. You play around their disruption so easily. Dragontail Flame, unless you open a lure, like Dragontail Flame only has really one target, which is a lure. So yeah, a lot of times it doesn't even matter. Dragontail Sting, banishing my monster from graveyard, my Malice monster from grave. Yeah, it's definitely gonna do a whole lot against Malice. And like Horn is like the only thing that's like a real disruption most of the time versus you in terms of the Dragontail top cards. And well, we have this fun cards here called Link Repo. So yeah, that kind of checks the horn pretty nicely right there. If that's the only thing we have to worry about. Um, now you can't just like do that like automatically because if you make a Link Revo and they have a Gula Mail, then you still have to have ways to chain block the Gula Mail. Otherwise, you have to burn your Link Revo on like a bad trap instead. So like you have to be careful right there. But I mean, the point is that you can play into the Dragon Tail endboard, and like you're honestly, on average, I think you might be you're like favored against the pure Dragon Tail endboard. If their endboard contains only Dragon Tail cards, as in only Dragon Tail traps and only Dragon Tail fusion monsters and only like a 5 mana in hand, you are definitely favored in that matchup. It's when they play other engines and when they end on more than just Dragon Tail stuff. That's when it gets a little harder. But at the same time, this deck runs 16 hand traps, 17 hand traps, or like even more if you include the Bishops. I don't include the Bishops as hand traps because they're not really that good. But like even without that, they're still like one, two, three, four, five. There's still like 14, 15 hand traps in this deck easily, or like 16. So like there's still a decent amount. You should open one at least, if not two, most of the time. And if you open, first off, if you open two hand traps versus Dragon Tail, a lot of times they just can't even play through that. But if you open one, you reduce the end board enough to where like you don't need to completely stop them from playing. You can break through half boards with ease with balance still. Or with, you can break through Drago Tail half boards with complete ease because like as for all the reasons I mentioned before. So yeah, really good Drago Tail matchup, which is Drago Tail is probably gonna be the most played deck in the format for a while at least. And Insane going first, you pretty much only lose the Maxi going first, or Maxi and Fulas. Anything else, for the most part, I don't think I've been literally, I don't think I've lost to any other hand trap going first besides Maxi or Fool Loss. I'm trying to remember. Maybe sometimes, like, the deck's biggest weakness is that sometimes it loses to itself. So sometimes you don't, because, you see all the cards on the ban list, like, one, like, yeah, sometimes you won't draw the best hand, sometimes you'll draw a weak hand, and then you'll lose because of that. Has nothing to do with your opponent, your deck just rigged on itself. So yeah, this deck loses to itself as much as it actually loses to other opponents. But uh, yeah, that's god damn. But I don't want to play Malice for another Duelist Cup. I really don't want to. Especially since I played it for the last one, I did not enjoy that experience at all. But the thing is that I don't know if this is like going to be a thing, but like the reason it was so miserable playing Malice last Duelist Cup was because everyone was playing 3 Lancia in their main deck, so like you would just lose games to Lancia that you had no control over, and like it just felt like terrible but either way. But like now, I don't know if people are playing Lancia still. I personally think that some decks should consider playing Lancia if their matchup versus Malice is really ass, because this deck is for real. And you don't want to have a bad Malice matchup going into Duelist Cup. But assuming people play less Lancia, and if there's going to be less Lancias going around, then that's just one. That's basically you're just saying you're not playing the best hand trap versus Malice, which means that even though Malice is nerfed, it's definitely worse than it was last Duelist Cup. It might be better positioned simply because of the lack of Lazio,
Oh,
the lack of
fuck.
Lantis being thrown around, which is a scary thought to think that after hitting the deck on like 3 to 4 consecutive ban lists and banning literally its most important extra deck, well not most important, second most important, White Bind's the most important extra monster, but banning like the second most important extra deck monster in Red Ransom, that this deck could be positioned better for this Duelist Cup than the previous Duelist Cup, I would have fucking I would wonder like what kind of crack you were smoking and like if I could like have some or something. But like yeah. Anyway, it's like onto the deck. The deck itself is again literally almost identical to a, a deck list from last month. So like there's really not much to say here. Like 3 Rabbit, 1 Tessie, 1 Dormouse, 3 Backup, 3 March Hare, 1 Wizard, 1 Gold Sark, 3 Allure, 1 Malice Underground, 1 NTP, 1 GTWC, 1 NTP11. Like yeah, that's really standard stuff. I should not have to explain any of that. It should be pretty self-explanatory. And then the rest is just non-engine hand traps. So a lot of these are playing Call by Cross Out. And then for hand traps, Donna's Impulse, this is another reason why Malice is so fucking good because like Donna's Impulse, which is like the best generic. It's like basically one of the best hand traps in
game right now, and pretty much in terms of non-floodgate ones, it's definitely the best non-floodgate hand traps, like not counting Maxi or like Shifter or stuff like that. Which, by the way, is another positive of playing Malice. Malice can play Shifter. It's a Shifter deck. I would say it plays Shifter better than any other of the like higher tier one, tier two, tier three decks, except like maybe Odeon. Maybe you can make an argument that Odeon is a better shifter deck than Lancia, better shifter deck than Malice because I mean what they care, but I mean the fact that you have shifter as an option is just insane as well. We have Fulos, we have Maxis, we have Ash Blossom, this self-explanatory. A couple Vicios and Droll Lockbird. These are the most contentious. These are the most questionable spots. So I really hate Droll as a hand trap right now. It's pretty much only good against Mitsurugi and Raifield variants, which are like somewhat two of the least common meta decks in the format right now because they're playing a lot of Draco Tail, which Droll is like terrible against. They're playing Malice, which Malice, Droll, it's not great against Malice. It's a little better than it was before, but it's still not really that good. Like you got shit like Orcus, which like who cares? You have Man with the Mark, which is they only search once ever anyway. So like, yeah, I actually don't know about Droll. Droll was mainly used as an anti-maxi, anti-Fool Loss plan, but like honestly, I don't even Droll Fool Loss because like I just eat the Fool Loss and just like play a minimal board. It's really kind of just for maxi, which is like I don't feel like that's a good enough reason to play Droll and Lockbird, especially if it's so bad as an actual hand trap. I would maybe consider playing an actual better hand trap like maybe Bell or like even Baylor's, even though those also conflict with Impulse. Vicios, Vicios are like a similar way because Vicios are even worse than Droll as a hand trap. Like I don't know what matchup Vicios are supposed to be good against. Like I guess Orcus and Mitsu, which are still not the two most common meta decks, and like it's not even that good against them. Like it doesn't one Bishop by itself doesn't do a significant amount of damage to Mitsu or Orcus, like unless it's specifically Baldrake versus Orcus. That's why I'm playing the Baldrake over Druid's Worm because like Druid's Worm is really like you draw one hand, you draw one Bishop versus Orcus. It doesn't actually do it anything, anyways, unless it's Baldrake. And if it's like against Mitsurugi, again one Bistio, okay, so you stop one, you basically got rid of one body. That's that's it. Unless Magnamud is good against Mitsurugi because Magnamud lets you get rid of two of the original monsters. At least one Baldrake versus Mitsurugi is like completely irrelevant most of the time. So I really don't like Vicios as hand traps. They are decent extenders, however, not as good as you might think. Like they're not as good as before because transcode is very important for combos now post Red Ransom ban, and there's just very obvious part of Transcode Talker's text where it says you cannot use its effect unless you do not special summon non-cyber monsters this turn if you want to use its effect. So if you Bistio and use it as an extender, then you can't use Transcode. Like you're not actually gaining quote unquote like a full extender that way because you are using an extender, but you're cutting off an extender later on with the Transcode Talker because Transcode Talker can like revive Whitebinder, then Whitebinder can banish the hard scripter. That's how like sometimes you use White Binder's banish effect really late in your combo, so after you make hard scripter, but like you have to revive the White Binder with transcode in those lines, and you can't do that if you use a Vistio. So like the visuals are kind of awkward as extenders. This is why I'm considering like swapping Vistios and Drolls out for like other hand traps or like other dark monsters. The other reason why I'm playing Vistios obviously is because I'm playing triple Allure and like you need dark monsters, play Allure of Darkness, kind of obvious there. So like I don't know if there are better dark monsters to play in place of Vicios, but that's something we'll figure out in like a week's time. And yeah, Shifter. Now a lot of people are playing Dimensional Fisher to counter Draco Tail, which is like is an option. However, I feel like this deck's Draco Tail matchup is already so good that you don't need to run cards for anti Draco Tail. Like if this was like another deck that struggled against Draco Tail, like maybe sure that you could consider Dimensional Fisher more. But like honestly, if you go
Oh,
first
right.
versus
Fuck.
Draco Tail and like you do your combo, you're gonna win anyways. Like without the
I
fucking
didn't think this
Dimensional
through.
Fisher. So like
Shit. Okay. Fuck.
not this
Whatever.
doesn't really seem the most necessary. Like Shifter is like decent enough. Shifter can be used when you're going second. The Thief Fisher is also okay going second because as I mentioned before, like Dallas can play into Draco Tail boards, and like if you stick a Thief Fisher on board and they try to use their interruptions while the defender is on board, like they're gonna lose all of their follow up, and then you're still gonna probably break through their moves. Like it's not terrible. Like this is definitely an option to consider if you want to cut some cards. I just don't want to cut hand traps that I would prefer to have in other matchups that aren't Drago Tail. But yeah, and then extra deck. So the extra deck is pretty. Most of these are like pretty self-explanatory. Like Link Spider for Nibiru, Almirage needed for hand traps. Link Repo obvious. Link the Color obvious. This shit needs to go by the. Okay, so to be honest, on the Link the Color discourse, I actually feel like Link the Color is not the biggest culprit anymore because usually, like, what made Link Decoder really annoying on top of being an extra, like, body was because it chain blocked your red red. But we don't have red ransom. So Link Decoder doesn't actually chain block anything relevant. So it's just an extra body. So because of that, like, I feel like in this format where we don't have a red ransom or the Link Decoder to chain block, this is not the most egregious extra deck monster anymore. Yeah, we have Wicked IP. This is not necessary. This is like a flex swap. This you could run Dark. You could run Typhon. You could run a lot of stuff. I never really made IP Master Arena. It's not really needed. I Splash Mage. Splash Mage would be like if you were talking about generic cyber spawn monsters, Splash Mage I think is a bigger culprit right now than Indicoder. You make Splash Mage in every one of your combos. So yeah, Link Decoder, it is what it is. Like one of these two should probably still get hit, if we're being all honest, because like this is the fact that the Malice Inward is unchanged after hitting Red Ransom means that clearly it was not do that hit did not serve its purpose. But we'll have to see. Like SP, Transcode, Heat Soul, you make Heat Soul so often now because you have extra bodies that you can't turn into Appaloosa. So like you got to do something with them. We have one white binder, one hard scripter, a firewall dragon, a access code talker, and an ally code talker. You could. I wouldn't recommend this, but there is a word where you can play two firewall dragon because two firewall dragon helps specifically with the one card rabbit combo. That being said, like if you fully resolve your one card rabbit combo, like you're gonna win already. You don't need the double firewall dragon to do that, but like it's just something funny you can do. But yeah, it's. I Look, man, if you don't believe me, we'll check out some gameplay with this deck. But really, this is I'm not the most happy customer that this deck is still way up there in Master Duel. Okay, this replay is gonna show how stupid Malus still is and how ignorant it is as a combo deck. So I opened Dormouse, which is like anytime you open Dormouse, it's like this deck never got hit on the balance whatsoever. So yeah, we have Dormouse plus two extenders. Literally, unless you have Maxi, unless you have Full Loss, you're not doing shit to this combo. So I'm gonna normal summon Dormouse. It's imperm. Oh no, what am I gonna do? Anyways, because I hard opened my 3 of March Hare, one of my 3 of March Hare is going to link into Link Decoder. March Hare banish Dormouse, special back to Dormouse, and then we're going to link all 3 into a White Binder, and then the Decoder is going to come back. And I don't use White Binder's effect to banish yet. Like, you want to save. Obviously, there's nothing worthwhile to banish except for March Hare right now, but we can just do that later. So, like, you don't want to use White Binder's effect when you lead with Dormouse first when you first summon White Binder. Instead, you're going to use White Binder to set the TB11. Then I'm going to use TB11 to banish the White Binder, and that's going to get Ash. So yeah, we've been Ash plus Imperm. We've been hit by 2 hand traps. Okay, let's see how that affects our end board after getting hit by Ash plus Imperm. So the White Binder still comes back, and then we get a draw card, and we draw into Chessy Cat, which is insane. Drawing a name like that basically made this combo even better. Like drawing a name right there let us do the full end board like these hand traps didn't exist. So I'm gonna use my other extender, Wizard Agnes, to summon back Dormouse, and then the Cyber's Wicked is gonna ban March Hare. We're gonna add the backup, and then the March Hare is gonna add itself back to hand. And then we're going to special backup administer. Backup administer is gonna add White Rabbit, so that's my final name. Now we through 2 hand traps and my TB11 getting Ash. We still got access to all of our names still. They're just in our hand right now. So we just gotta get rid of these from our hand and we're goofy. So I'm gonna pitch Chessy Cat because I haven't used its effect yet. We're gonna go with the Link Decode, or we're gonna go with the Heart Scripter. Then Heart Scripter plus Wicked goes into Transcode. Transcode is gonna revive White Binder, and here is where we use White Binder's effect. Now that I have both Chessy Cat and Heart Scripter in graveyard, we can use our White Binder to manage both of them. And also, I'll banish a TV11 as well, just to get another banish for another card to put back for Heartscripper. And then the Heartscripper, and then the Chessy Cat comes back. And then the Chessy Cat, I can use it to banish the white rabbit that we added off of the backup, and then the white binder can trigger. Special white binder is going to set the GWC, and then we're going to link. I'm just going to allure her front because why not, right? Oh, draw into two more hand traps. Well, would you look at that? And then we go into firewall, and then we go into ally code talker, and then ally code talker brings back the transcode and the white binder, and this is our end board. Okay, so like, you remember when our opponent like hand trapped us twice and burned Ash and Imperm, and this is literally the full end board. The only thing this end board is missing is that it's missing a heat soul. So yeah, all your two hand traps prevent me from making all of one Deco Talker heat soul on my end board. So instead, I'm gonna have to settle with the white. But we still drew 4 cards. In fact, we drew 6 cards because we drew into an Allure of Darkness, which drew into 2 more hand traps. So yeah, this is Ally Code, Transfuel Talker, Rebounds, Firewall, Malice, and GWC with the both White Rabbit and Heartscripter in Graveyard, which means that we will get the MTP as well, so that's 2 more banishes, a Bounce 3, an Omni Negate, and then 3 hand traps, or well, 2 hand traps really, because we double impulse. But I mean, my opponent has a 3-card hand because they hand trapped us twice. So like, what chance do they really have anymore? They're gonna go in the battle phase and evenly matched. Man, it would be a shame if I had if I didn't have an Omni Negate for that or something. But yeah, we're gonna tribute the white miner. I actually forgot to. There's one thing I forgot. I forgot to make a. Actually misplayed. I forgot to make a fucking Linger Revo on the end board. You're supposed to make a Linger Revo
Very
somewhere.
nice.
I forgot. Because I was just too
I
lost in the
think
sauce.
the
But you're supposed
matchup
to have a Linger
between
Revo. That way,
these two decks are
after
actually
I
way
negate the
more
evening of Ally Code, I can.
evenly matched now that I'm playing Urshgala and Mugen. I still kind of feel like Yuzuki has the edge. But Mugen was able to win, so